Bigfoot is real. Full stop. There's been so many reports, so many people have seen this thing, so many people have smelled this thing over the years that it's real. And not only that, the best proof still remains the 1967 Roger Patterson, Bob Gimlin film. Okay. These two guys, went looking for Bigfoot back in 1967 in a place called Bluff Creek in Northern California. And they filmed this incredible footage of a Bigfoot creature. And a lot of people over time have tried to claim that this was fake, and all kinds of uh, people, all kinds of debunkers have tried to say it was fake. It was a guy that stepped up in 1998. You know, uh, over 30 years, 31 years after the incident, and claimed that he wore the suit. This guy's name was Bob Hieronymus. I don't believe Bob Hieronymus. I know he took a lie detector test and passed, but that doesn't mean anything. That's not, that doesn't prove a thing. Uh, Roger Patterson, who filmed this, he died in 1972 of cancer, and he claimed right until he died that it really was real. That he really saw this thing. He really filmed it. Bob Gimlin, who's alive at this moment, has claimed the same thing all these years. It's real. It was real. It wasn't a hoax. A lot of people like to say it's a hoax. I don't know why, but I guess to make money on books and whatnot. But it's real. I mean, you could watch the footage on YouTube. There's multiple uh, videos on YouTube. A lot of them are really good. These where they stabilized it, but, made it high definition, and it's real. I mean, the more this image is made clear over the years via technology, the more real it becomes. I mean, I find it more unbelievable that two cowboys in Northern California in 1967 were able to someone to make a suit that looked like this. I mean, this was a female, obviously a female Bigfoot, or as the Indians call this thing, Sasquatch. It had breasts. Um, I mean, with these improved the stabilization and the improvements in the image quality, you could, it's obvious this thing is real. It's a real thing. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. This thing is real. This is a real animal. So when people say they see this thing, they're some people might be making up lies, and some people are telling the truth. Okay, but this is the best proof that we've ever had of this. I mean, there's nothing to compare to this. It's the best footage of a Bigfoot we've ever had. And again, it would be too incredible that that these two cowboys in California in 1967 could find makeup effects like this. I mean, it'd be impossible. Actually, this thing looks better than the primitive man that was depicted in the opening scenes of Stanley Kubrick's 1968 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, those things don't look as good as this. Okay, uh, I mean, you see muscle movement in the legs in the Patterson footage. Okay, Planet of the Apes also released in 1968, starring Charlton Heston. The people are playing the apes. I mean, those makeup effects were great, actually. But it was nothing compared to the real thing that we're seeing, the a real Bigfoot. Okay, Patterson Gimlin footage is real, and Bigfoot is real. It's a real thing. For whatever reason we are unable to prove this. I mean, we don't have a body. We don't have a captured one. That's for some reason these things they remain extremely elusive. Um, I met a guy back in the late '90s in 1999 who had a Bigfoot encounter. Now, one of my friends told me that he had an uncle. I was back in the '90s. He told me he had an uncle who said he saw Bigfoot back in the '70s. So I was working at a newspaper at the time, the Hazleton Standard Speaker, and I, I asked my friend if he can give me this guy's name. I want to see if he'll do a story. I want to like to do an article on this because it was never, it was only talked about in the family. So I wanted to, put this in the newspaper. And my friend's like, oh, he's not going to do it. And I said, oh, just give me his number. I'd like to, talk to him, see what he says. And he gave me the number. So I contacted this guy. Um, his name was Gary Urban. I contacted him, and I told him who I was, what I wanted to do. I wanted to do an article on this, and he was very reluctant. He did not want to do it. I pretty much practically begged him. I was like, I'm very interested in this. I think the Patterson Gimlin footage is real. I believe a lot of these people, these sightings that have been reported. I mean, a lot of these people are credible. And I said, I'd like to get your story out there. And finally, he agreed. So um, I met this guy and we talked. Um, his sighting happened in Schuylkill County. That's where I'm at right now. It was Monterey Township. And I actually pulled up the article here. I'm going to read the section of this article that talks about Mr. Urban's experience that happened in 1975. Mahanoy City resident Gary Urban recently recalled a weird and wild day he had nearly 25 years ago, an experience that he says still raises the goosebumps on his flesh. It was the middle of the summer in 1975. Urban, then 16 and living in the Monterey Township village of Ellengown, had just bought a new Kawasaki 500 motorcycle. I remember that right after I got that motorcycle, it rained for a few days and I couldn't wait to take it for a drive, he said. A nice day finally came, and Urban took his new motorcycle for a spin. His testing grounds were a series of dirt roads and trails located east of Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, near the near the small village of Yatesville. On a return trip to the area, Urban said he would never go there alone or without a gun because I still remember it like it happened yesterday. Recent rains had left many muddy spots and water-filled puddles along the road, but suddenly Urban came to a seemingly inescapable body of water in the middle of the road. He quickly locked up his brakes and the motorcycle slid through a puddle before stalling out on an island in the middle of it. After repeated attempts to restart the bike failed, Urban pulled out a cigarette, and right when I struck the match, I heard footsteps. There was someone walking behind me. The section where Urban's motorcycle stalled out was bookcased by heavy woods and was on land that was privately owned, he said. My first thought was that it was a game warden or a landowner ready to tell me that I wasn't supposed to be there, Urban recalled. As I turned around to where the noise was coming from, I remember I was already starting to think of an excuse to tell whoever it was. I turned to give him a story. However, what Urban saw wasn't a human being. What I saw was this creature walking away from me, he said. Urban said this was the most frightening experience of his life, and he froze in shock momentarily as a monstrous apparition traipsed about only a few yards away from him. The creature, Urban said it was at least 8 feet tall and covered with heavy, matted down brown fur or hair, walked through the woods, not needing to push the trees out of its way. It didn't need to move anything. Everything moved for it, he said. Urban said all the heavy brush and trees folded out of the creature's way as it walked, much like the grass moves when a person walks through it. He said he never saw the creature's face, as it didn't turn to face him. Its shoulders, he said, were incredibly wide, similar to a football player with shoulder pads on. I couldn't make out the shape of its head, and it looked like it didn't have a neck, he said. I knew it wasn't a bear because it didn't have a bear's waddle, and it walked straight as an arrow through the woods. Urban said the creature must have been standing near or on the road just before his motorcycle stalled out. Because of its immense size, Urban said he could have easily mistaken it for a tree if he had in fact driven past it. After the thing disappeared in the woods, Urban got the motorcycle started and went back to his Ellengowan home. When I got home, my mom said to me that it looked like I saw a ghost, he said. I told her she was pretty close. Urban said he tried to convince his brothers to go back to the site with him to look for footprints. He was adamant that he wasn't about to ever go there alone, but they didn't believe me. And he said the story even now might sound hard to believe. I know that what I saw that day was real, he said. What would I have to gain by telling people a story like this? Nothing. I'm a Christian, and if I had a Bible, I'd swear on it that I really saw it. Regarding photographs and film that allegedly depicted Bigfoot, Urban said he never seen anything that looks like the thing I saw that day. So, that guy was telling the truth. Gary Urban was telling the truth. He saw something that was, it wasn't a bear, it was a Sasquatch. It was Bigfoot. It was real. Bigfoot is real. I mean, over the years, I've watched so many different television programs, all the way going back to the old In Search of TV series with the host Leonard Nimoy back in the 70s, early 80s. They had episodes on about Bigfoot then. There were all kinds of shows in the 70s. I remember as a kid watching it. There were shows about people, with people who claimed to have seen that then. There's been shows over decades. They're still on TV talking about. There's people they make TV shows looking for these things. They never find them. They're very elusive. For whatever reason, we were not able to capture one of these, dead or alive. Who knows why? Now, moving on. And in the same vein, you know, Bigfoot, you know, it's what if this is the situation? What if the situation with Bigfoot is that these creatures are somehow connected with aliens? Actually, extraterrestrials have been providing some sort of protection for these Bigfoot to help keep these things hidden from humankind. What if that's the case? Or what if these creatures are actually extraterrestrials themselves, or some sort of foot soldiers that do work for extraterrestrials. Maybe they're like uh, some sort of humanoid slave that are doing things for extraterrestrials, because it's funny, like it's like they exist, but we just still can't get one. But the interesting thing is over the years across the United States, there have been situations where UFOs and Bigfoot events happen hand in hand. And some of these things happened in Pennsylvania back in the early 1970s in Western Pennsylvania. They happen in California, all over the place. So what if that's the case? What if, you know, Bigfoot is actually, uh, you know, some sort of being that's receives protection from, or is used by, or whatever, something that's connected with extraterrestrials. Well, there's been stories over the years. Um, there was in Erie, Pennsylvania, in July of 1966. There was five people in a car that saw a Bigfoot, or saw a Bigfoot shortly after they saw a UFO landing. There was a UFO landing, and then they saw a Bigfoot walking near this thing. Um, there were other stories in California, in Southern California, in 1968. There was two prospectors out there who they saw a flying saucer. It was, so they followed this. They thought it was an explosion, and they found this flying saucer that was hovering over this canyon. And below the canyon, they saw these what looked like Bigfoot, these beings with glowing red eyes, marching in a single file underneath this saucer, hovering over this canyon, hovering over these creatures. Uh, it, there was no sound. The creatures were making no sound. Uh, the saucer was soundless. There was no sound, even though it was hovering off the ground. And yet there was the only sound they did hear, they heard some like mechanical sounds, like that they described like a church bell ringing. And suddenly these guys they were shocked when they discovered there was two of these Sasquatch standing right behind them. And then these guys just took off. The beings were just standing there looking at them. These two, large Sasquatch were standing there, just staring at these guys. And then the guys took off. They were scared out of their minds. And then in the 1973, there were a lot of things going on, especially in Pennsylvania. Many sightings of Bigfoot and UFOs at the same time, flying saucers or strange craft that seemingly was not man-made. Um, for instance, there was three women who were driving along a wooded area in Western Pennsylvania in 1973, and they saw three Bigfoot three Bigfoot creatures, 7 foot tall. These things were, and they saw them running down this ramp of a landed spacecraft. Um, in another incident in Pennsylvania, there was two teenage girls saw a Bigfoot creature walking around holding some sort of a floating luminous sphere, and there was also a UFO reported in that area at the same time. Um, and in another incident from 1973 in Western Pennsylvania happened. It's called the Greensburg case, and it's very, very strange. There was many people. There were 15 people who saw this flying saucer land in a, you know, come down in a pasture, and there was some 22-year-old guy and a couple other people that went to investigate, and they found this UFO landed. It was like, it looked like a bubble. They said it was dome shaped, like a big bubble, just sitting there on the ground. And then all of a sudden, they saw these two Bigfoot, these hairy, and Bigfoot with the, they were hairy, they had glowing eyes. They're walking along a fence line that was surrounding where this thing had landed. And then one guy, he started taking shots at the things, and all of a sudden, one of the creatures started, you know, whining out in pain, and although this motor sound that was coming from this landed UFO, it immediately, it just stopped. It suddenly just stopped, and then it disappeared, and the beings actually then it left this glowing area on the ground, and these two Bigfoot. They were still standing there looking at where this flying saucer was, and then he just went walking back into the woods. And then later on, the cops showed up. The ground was still glowing. It glowed for hours afterward, right? There was animals had avoided this spot. I mean, this is an unbelievable story. So, taking all of that into consideration, why are extraterrestrials sometimes seen in the vicinity of Bigfoot? Okay, again, especially we know now. I mean, the Pentagon, basically confirmed that there's objects out there of which they don't know not where they come from or how they operate. Pretty much, I know there's people out there. Well, they, who try to claim that. Well, it might be China or Russia that are using this kind of technology. No, 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 no. It's not like It's not like the United States military has just started encountering these things in the last 5 years or over the last 20 years. Even they've been encountering these things for since at least 1947. Okay, there are numerous reports from pilots, and one of the best. Again, I keep I'll never stop pointing this out. One of the best books I've ever read about the UFO and United States military is called UFOs and the National Security State, Volume One and Volume Two. There are two different books actually by a historian named Richard M. Dolan, and those books are great. I mean, these books are that they're real. But anyway, getting back to the situation at hand here, why are Bigfoot creatures sometimes seen in the vicinity of flying saucers and purported spacecraft? Um, that's a big question. Are the extraterrestrials using these beings as slaves for some purpose? Uh, is the reason that we cannot find even a dead Bigfoot, uh, laying dead in the woods, is the reason that we can't find one is because somehow the aliens are making have arranged things so we could never find them, because maybe there's something the aliens don't want us to know about ourselves, and that there would be answers in the DNA of a Bigfoot. Uh, What if we're actually half Bigfoot and half something not from this that never originated on this planet, but from someplace else? And if we had a Bigfoot, we would like our scientists would say, hmm, maybe, Guess what? It looks like we're part this thing and part something we don't know. Maybe that's the reason, and somehow the extraterrestrials, with the advancements that they have at their in their possession, they cloak these things from us, and maybe that's why the Bigfoot are just so elusive because they're receiving cover from ETs. I know it sounds insane, and I'm not saying this is what's going on. I'm just throwing this out there as a possibility because we just don't know the answer. Now, of course, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. If you're one of these people who just can't accept the idea of extraterrestrials or the idea of Bigfoot, um, then I don't know why you're listening to this. Now, if you're one of these people that have seen, who's a knower like I am, I have not seen a Bigfoot personally, but I've read enough things to you know to understand that yes, this is real. I mean, again, the Patterson Gimlin footage, that's not a hoax. There's just no way. So and when 15 people in Pennsylvania, see a flying saucer, and then some more people see it, yeah, there's some Bigfoot creatures hanging out near it for some reason. There's something going on, and that's not just the only case. I mean, there's multiple cases of these situations that have been reported over the years. Um, what's going on? Um, are Bigfoot themselves, are they extraterrestrials? Maybe it's all some sort of a front. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're extraterrestrials, and maybe that's what they look like. They stink like that, but they're somehow highly intelligent, and maybe they're coming here from outer space, and that's why we can't catch them because they're just way ahead of us. I mean, nobody ever really thinks about that. We all assume, you know, that Bigfoot creatures are uh, you know primitive versions of man. But what if they're not? What if they're not even from here? What if Bigfoot come here in spacecraft and they're out doing something that we could never even imagine? What if they're in the woods? Uh, doing some sort of experiments, and sometimes we see them and then they just use their technology and disappear. I know that sounds completely insane. I actually don't believe that, but again, I mean, when you don't have any answers, you have to explore every possibility, and I guess that's a possibility. I don't think that's what it is, but it could be, I guess. I mean, because nobody else has any solid answers. I mean, why are extraterrestrials and Bigfoot sometimes seen together? What's going on? Um, it's a mystery. It's actually there's a mystery. I mean, it's a mystery in mysteries because I mean, you got the Bigfoot mystery by itself, then you got the extraterrestrial mystery, and then you get the two of them together, and that's even a bigger mystery. Well, why would that be? Um, I don't know. It's just something to think about. There's a connection there for some reason. There's been a connection, but again, it could be just simply that maybe these Bigfoot, maybe the aliens, the same way they abduct human beings and take them in their spacecraft and do things to them and then set them back. Maybe they're doing the same thing to these Bigfoot. You know, they find them somehow. I'm sure they have. I'm sure extraterrestrials. If these Bigfoot are, rogue beings, primitive human beings style, half ape, half human, walking through the woods, and we can't find them. I'm sure extraterrestrials have technology that could weed them out and probably draw them in. You know, and then put them on their craft, look them over, put them in, paralyze them basically, and then set them back in the woods again. I mean, I'm sure that there's technology at the fingertips of extraterrestrials to do those kinds of things too. It's just a big mystery, but there is a connection. There's been enough reports. Now, if it was just one story about this, but there's tons of stories out there. There's tons of books with this in there. Um, it's just something that we just have no answer to, and all we can do is speculate on why there's a connection between uh, these two different. Basically, uh, we don't have absolute proof of these things. I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. I know I've seen a flying saucer. I haven't seen a Bigfoot, but I've seen a spacecraft or a craft that was flying around that there was no way it was made by humans. No way. But anyhow, I want to point out that there was an interesting documentary that was recently uploaded on YouTube, called it's called Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, and it's about Bigfoot sightings, extraterrestrial spacecraft incidents, and some Bigfoot slash UFO incidents that occurred in an area in western Pennsylvania, where a lot of strange things have happened. And I'm going to leave that link in the description for this. So I would check that YouTube video out. It's very interesting. And anyhow, thank you very much for listening.